To an entire generation, Vietnam is not a country, it's a war. It's images like these which spring to mind when we think about Vietnam, people struggling to get out of Saigon. Since the last US helicopter left, we've heard an awful lot about Vietnam from the Americans, but almost nothing at all from the country itself. The communists had won, and for 15 years, the whole place just seemed to shut down. Today, it's opening up again. The communists may still be in control, but all over the country, north and south, the shackles are off. These people are going places. Everyone has learned to forgive and forget. Children may still play football under the watchful gaze of Lenin, but today, Marx mixes it with Murdoch. Later this year, they're even opening a stock exchange. This is a place with an amazing past, but perhaps more importantly, it's a place with an amazing future. Before they sent the Americans packing, they'd inserted a very large rocket-shaped flea in the French's ear. And then, a couple of years ago, the Russians upped and left. Now, when you've been exposed to three cultures as different and as varied as that, you would expect certain things. You'd expect them, for instance, to start opening restaurants in bus stations, which they do. You'd expect the food to be a right old hodgepodge, sort of nouvelle cuisine cabbage burgers every night. But on that one, you'd be wrong. The food here is a sensation. The cars they drive, however, are not. This Russian Jeep, known in Vietnam as the common car, has an engine, but it's hard to say what sort. Certainly, if you're after refinement or power, you're better off with one of these. If it's a diesel, it's very rough indeed. If it's petrol, it should be taken outside and shot. No trial, no last breakfast, and no flowers, please. It's also fantastically badly equipped. You get a horn, which is fair enough because that's vital in Vietnam. But that is it. Hold on a minute, I'm just going to put my seatbelt on. Oh. I'm just going to slide it into fifth. No, fourth's good. Fourth's fine, no problem. I tell you what I will do, I will just put my seat back. You can't. No matter, I'll get the windows down. Now. It's the worst car in the world by miles. The only thing that's smooth about it is the spare tyre. This car has absolutely no redeeming features. And things get worse because you can rent the damn things from, it must be said, a rather strange place. The Marxist-Leninist Institute. But let me give you a Judith Chalmers-style tip here. Don't bother. Avoid it like you would avoid a bubonic rat. Small wonder the Vietnamese were glad to see the back of the Russians if that was their idea of technological assistance. Mind you, not half as glad as they were to see the back of the Americans.
When your day is long and the night is yours alone, when you're sure you've had enough of this life,
America left Vietnam with a lot of scars, but at least in a panic to get out, they did leave some cars. In the countryside, the ox cart is still king of the road, but in town it's different. 300 years ago, this was a Chevrolet. The original American engine gave up the ghost a long time ago, but rather than simply scrap the car, it's been replaced with a diesel of indeterminate age and origin. I suspect it may have come out of some old air conditioning unit somewhere. Now, by Western standards, the transplant, it has to be said, is not a particularly successful one. But in Vietnam, the car still moves, and that's good enough. Because there's rather less power than the designer envisaged, the suspension has been replaced ingeniously with scaffolding poles. Sadly, the modifications don't stop there. You may have noticed that I'm a little cramped, but this is because the original four-seater layout has been modified somewhat so that it can accommodate up to 20. The only problem I've got is that to change gear, I have to lean out, I don't get my foot on the clutch, change gear, and shut the door again. Oh, I don't know if that's going to catch on. Oh, dear. So what about the French? They ran Vietnam for years. What traces have they left behind? Well, in Hanoi particularly, there's some beautiful buildings. There's a certain sense of style, and anyone who's tried to cross the road in Paris will feel quite at home here. There are also some old French cars. The most common is the Citroën Traction Avant. Many were simply left here after the Vietnamese peasant army did the unthinkable and beat their French masters into submission. Most have subsequently been converted into taxis, though there's only seating in here for 15. Sheesh. Hardly seems worth the bother of the conversion if you can only get 3 families inside. The first time we saw a Renault Dauphin, there was a great deal of pointing and wanting to go to the lavatory with excitement. But we were soon bored. They're everywhere, belching smoke and breaking wind. We were never bored, though, when we saw one of these. It could almost have been designed specifically for the leafy boulevards and avenues of Saigon. After a morning spent thrashing the natives on the rubber plantations, the French would climb into their Peugeot 203s like this one, the French equivalent of the Morris Minor, and they'd pop down to the Vickers for tea and garlic. It was all just too agreeable. For the French, anyway. It's the perfect car, even today, for a really very lovely city. And it's not alone. There's a whisper out here that someone somewhere has an old Bugatti Royale tucked away in a barn. And they don't realise that in the West it would fetch at least £5 million. The question is, though, how on earth have all these old cars survived a war, its aftermath, and 15 years of hardline communism?
I guess they've been under the houses, in the garage, scattering across the countries, but mainly in Ho Chi Minh City and certain parts of central part of Vietnam.
But what would have happened if you'd gone for a drive in the car you were squirreling away?
I think it was simply not allowed. You know, people weren't allowed to wear colored clothes anyway. And there was not enough petrol. And all the cars on the road at that time, I think, were for government use only. The fact that we had 15 years of those cars being put away somewhere, not used and not touched, make our life of restoring it easier.
The moment of truth for a lost country. The enemy literally at the gates of the presidential palace.
But the army from the victorious north of the country didn't indulge themselves on a feeding frenzy of hate. The palace survived, and more amazing still, so did the cars used by the US Embassy staff. Someone had the sense to hide them from the elements as surely as they were hidden from the secret police, so that today they look like new. The Vietnamese are not, it seems, a wasteful people. They recycle everything. There are no scrapyards here. Nothing is ever simply thrown away. Remember, a teacher here earns £30 a month, but even if he could afford new spare parts, he wouldn't exactly be tripping over stores selling oil filters for a 1956 Renault. If ever they get round to introducing an MOT test here, everything would fail. Because everything was designed by Mr. Heath, Mr. Robinson, Mad Max, or Wurzel Gummidge. If you have one engine, at night it powers your house. On market days it goes in your truck, and at all other times it slots in your tractor. And if you think the transport is primitive, just wait till you see the traffic laws. In Vietnam, you can be an official, a government-appointed human indicator. All you have to do is hang off the bus, shouting at people on mopeds. It's a system that doesn't work very well.
In the future, the Standing Committee of the National Assembly is preparing to adopt a new rule guaranteeing the safety of cars on the road. This is a very serious problem in Vietnam because we use many old cars, and in the future we have to issue regulations to car owners on how to use their cars, how to keep them in good condition to guarantee the safety of the passengers.
Now, you'd think that in a country with not much in the way of a highway code, a Porsche 911 would be the keen driver's idea of heaven. Until very recently, this was the only fast car in a country of 70 million people. It sounds like fun, but as Finnish expat Matti Nurmi explains, it isn't.
Of course, it is not so usable here. You cannot use the top speed in the town itself because the traffic is really bad. But there is few places. Example, when you go to airport, there you can a little bit speed up. One-sided top speed to 65.
265 kilometers an hour?
Yes.
They have the rules, but they can't enforce them.
No, it's working more with feelings, not with the rules. And the people like someone, it's always, everything in Vietnam working like this. And the people working with feelings. When the police feel that it's something nice, they don't pay attention, they're happy.
In fact, every Vietnamese we spoke to said the Porsche was silly, too expensive and too small. What you'd expect, really, from a country that hasn't been properly introduced yet to the idea of four-wheeled motoring. In Vietnam, the moped is a works van. It's a butcher's truck. It's a police car. It's a family saloon, even. Already, there are 6 million mopeds in Vietnam. Except, let's be accurate. Let's at least get the name right. Out here, the moped is known as a Honda. Honda has the market completely sewn up. But not any old Honda will do. It has to be the dream. This is what all the young dudes want. If this was a company car park, this would be the boss's Jag. What they like is the electric start, the 100cc motor, and the fact it's got seating for 5. Admission time. I have never ridden a motorcycle of any description on the public road before. That is a morale booster. It's actually not too bad. Once I'd mastered the bike and discovered that you can ride on whichever side of the road takes your fancy, I became only mildly terrified. You need to remember that while traffic lights are only advisory here, people have paid £2,000 for their dreams, and they'll do anything they can to avoid a crash. They also avoid taking a test and wearing any form of protective clothing. The law says you have to wear a crash helmet, but the law also says that all bars and restaurants must close at 11:30. And I didn't get in last night till 4 a.m. Small wonder they call these people the Italians of Asia. You can buy lots of things at the side of the road, busts of Ho Chi Minh, dead dogs, you name it. But you see if you can find a petrol station. This is what you do when you want fuel in Saigon. Every 15 or 20 yards down every single pavement, people are selling it out of bottles. They go down the filling station, fill up their bottles for 20p a litre, and then sell it on for 22p. But I'm not going to buy any because the word on the street is they top it up with mazola, paraffin, water, and only the very best will do for my dream.
But the plasticky reliability of the Dream is not for everyone. In the same way that old cars are now being restored, old bikes are getting a new lick of paint and some more chrome. Customising a bike is considered a pretty strange thing to do in what's still technically a third world country. But it isn't half as strange as what they do with them. They use them to pull birds.
And then, on a Sunday night, everyone under the age of 20 gets onto their hogs and goes for a spin. It's a time for flirting. It's a time for having fun.
She says hello, you fool, I love you. Come on, join the joyride. Join the
The most popular choice for the so-called Viet Q, people who left Vietnam in the 70s but are now coming back, is the Lambretta.
It's different. Well, the first time I saw it, it looks different than any other bike. And I like different things. You know. I don't like to be the same as the typical people that I have here. Lambretta considered to be a poor people bike. You know, it's for a lower class. If you ride one around, you consider to be like, you know, not fashionable and not updated.
But when it's chromed and tarted up, these guys are the coolest dudes in town. Except for that bloke in the 911, of course.
She says hello, you fool, I love you. Come on, join the joyride. Be a joyrider.
Now, mopeds are all very well, whether they're Hondas or Lambrettas, but for me, this, the Cyclo, is quite simply the best form of transport I have ever found anywhere in the world.
It's elegance personified, and it must be said, quiet too. But for the engine, Dith Pran back there, it's not so good. Frankly, he doesn't want to spend the rest of his days wheeling big noses around for 50 cents an hour. He has seen what's happened in Thailand. The government has seen what's happened in Thailand and Taiwan and Korea and every other country in Southeast Asia. The Vietnamese have had a look at what they've got and unsurprisingly decided they want to leave the Middle Ages and help themselves to a slice of the action.
Tourism, of course, is one answer. But the trouble is, at the moment, the only sort of people who are coming to Vietnam are the hearty backpackers, bearded Australian vegetarians who come here for a month, spend $32, and the only souvenir they go home with is a bout of diarrhea. What Vietnam needs are the big spenders. The sort of people who want ice machines on every street corner, subterranean swimming pools, hot and cold running satellite television. They want the impossible. They want to gaze upon a 13th century vista from a 21st century hotel balcony.
But before they get the tourists to come to what is a spectacular country, they need to ruin it. And they are doing. Hotels are popping up like mushrooms after a summer shower. And new roads are being built too, but not for cars. Vietnam is hoping to succeed where the rest of the world has failed. They want to get people off their bikes, not into cars, but onto the buses.
This is a very important duty assigned by the government to the Ministry of Transport and Communication. We have a plan to build bus lanes so that by the year 2000 we hope to convert 40 to 50% of the cyclists and motorcyclists to bus passengers and to limit, step by step, the number of cycles and motorcycles driving on the road.
Fat chance. When the jungle has been pulled down to make way for the inevitable roads, they'll need something to drive, and this is the first car factory. It demonstrates absolutely the Vietnamese fascination for recycling. Here they've worked out how to convert old beer and soda cans into helicopters, jets and old trucks. It's all very clever, but you can't help wondering whether this remarkable ability qualifies them to build the real thing, to take on Japan and Germany. Nevertheless, they're going to give it a go. It's embryonic right now, but Vietnam is getting itself a car industry.
Typically what happens in developing countries, and Vietnam will be like others, is that the government says, we want to build up our economy, and we know the best way to do that is to bring vehicles in to transport goods from points A to points B. So in the very first phase, they opt for imports from overseas, but they quickly realize that money's going out the door. They want to replace that with domestically built vehicles.
Already, Fiat, Renault, Mazda and Mitsubishi have set up joint venture projects, exporting kits which are nailed together in Vietnam. But it's this street, this almost medieval backwater in the backside of Hanoi, that plays host to the biggest surprise of all. A factory just behind these houses is about to start making the ultimate driving machine, which it'll need to be if it ever wants to get out of the place. Yup, you'll be able to go down to your local BMW dealership pretty soon and say, was my car made in Munich or was it made in Vietnam? This is the production line. Quiet now, but by the time you see this, it'll be a flurry of activity as the chaps grapple with the problems of building a car as complex as the 525i. Each will eventually be tested on this grueling test track. And you can stop laughing right now, because at least Vietnam has a motor industry, and it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. A German car worker needs 4 million marks before he'll get out of bed in the morning. The guys in there, well, they're working for $80 a month. That's simple economics.
The import duty on fully built-up passenger cars is 200%, which means, in essence, that very few people in Vietnam can afford to buy a car from overseas. By producing locally, however, BMW gets a significant tax reduction. They pay only a 40% duty on their kit, which they assemble here in Vietnam.
Mercedes is king throughout Asia, but BMW, with its lower prices, is out for blood. They still won't win, though, because out here, BMW is a car maker. Mercedes-Benz is a deity.
I call it a Chinaman mentality. Every Chinaman, i.e. Vietnamese included, have a dream of making a statement that, yes, I have arrived, by having a three-pointed star in their possession, and even the second-hand one. So there is something in this Asian society where Mercedes-Benz is highly regarded.
This battle between Merc and BM spilled over to the first ever, rather ritzy, Saigon Motor Show. Daimler-Benz won the first round by not turning up, saying the no-show made them appear even more exclusive. BMW exhibited a fully imported 7 Series, cost £200,000. This show, to the average Vietnamese, is rather like the Farnborough Air Show in Britain.
I just love to go along and look at those Harriers, but I'm a few million quid short of actually buying one.
It's unlikely that, despite the crowds, a single car was sold here. What the manufacturers are trying to do is create themselves an image, using all the old tricks to make themselves look glamorous. It's a sort of mating dance, but the rewards will be a long time coming. Right now, even with the boost from home-built products, just 10,000 cars a year are sold here.
By comparison, Thailand today is 500,000 units a year, and by 2000, people say it'll eclipse 1 million. So a very small market here, but rapid growth. And that's what's interesting these European and American companies.
So maybe within 10 years, everyone that now has a moped or a bicycle will have a car. Oh dear.
I'm confident that with the lesson of Thailand and other countries, Vietnam would learn to minimize the impact of the arrival of cars. What we are seeing now is a massive number of motorbikes, and I keep telling my board that one day, when we could replace every motorbike by a car, I think I'll be okay. But perhaps I wouldn't want to live in Saigon.
You're not joking, mate. Vietnam shouldn't be looking to copy the rest of the world. We should be copying them.
It's incredible, isn't it? A city of 4.5 million souls with a transport system that actually works. Trouble is, the car companies are coming now with their clever advertising and their shiny hubcaps, and they're going to wreck it.